What do you get when you mix horror, heart, and a whole lot of hustle? You get Tiffany Koplin. In this episode, we talk with one of the key moderators behind Books of Horror, the 63,000 member community that's become a sanctuary for indie horror authors. Tiffany shares how her journey from shelving paperbacks at half-price books led to helping shape one of the most passionate horror spaces online. We dig into the Indie Author Book Brawl, the growing phenomenon of chapbooks, and the behind-the-scenes magic of the Books Brews Author Con. Whether you're knee-deep in obscure splatterpunk or just discovering there's more to horror than King, Kuntz, and Rice, this episode is for you. So without further ado, I give you Tiffany Koplin. Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me on this 6th day of May 2025. I've been hearing great things about the upcoming Books Brews Author Con and have already had quite a few of the attending authors on the show, as well as having read the work of many others, so I know that this event is going to be exceptional. Then, my favorite redhead, Ruth Ann Jaggi, brought you to my attention as the curator of the event, and I quickly discovered that you're a key figure in the promotion, cultivation, and support of the indie horror community. You're a tireless worker, a talented promoter, and a creative curator of creatives. That's a mouthful. So thank you for being on the show today so we can learn more about all the exciting things happening in the community.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that. I'm really excited, and Ruth Ann Jag is amazing. I just feel really honored. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, so I know this is kind of a generic question, but considering your involvement in the indie horror community, I guess the most simple, straightforward beginning question is, how did you make your way into the world of indie horror?
So I worked at a half-price books in the Chicago area, and I was running the horror book section. And I had noticed that a lot of the horror section was just filled with Stephen King, Dean Koontz, and Anne Rice, and then VC Andrews. But I'm kind of one of those overachievers at times. And so I was like, there has to be something out there that I can learn a little bit more about, like other horror books. Because when I was in 7th grade and 8th grade and then through high school, a friend of mine used to read all those like paperbacks. She used to go to like Borders and Barnes and Nobles and stuff and just buy paperbacks all the time, the horror ones. And so I used to read those all the time with her. And then I was like, you know what? I got to start reading horror again. So I found Books of Horror, and this was when there was only about 600 people in the group. And then I joined the group, and then it was a blast. And I learned a lot more about horror and how there's so much more out there than King, Kuntz, and Rice. And yeah, and then I just started doing things with there back then. And I started doing where I noticed there was a lot of authors on there. And so one of the members found an author that we read one of the paperbacks. It was Lee Clark, and it was Feeding. And then he found him on Facebook, and he actually got him to do like a Q&A. And there was less than 1,000 of us in this group, and we were just so blown away. And then I was like, this was a really cool idea. Let's do this more. So I started kind of curating that in Books of Horror. And then they invited me to be an admin. And then I took a few years off, and then I started doing things again. So it was really,
Gotcha.
I enjoyed it, and I really enjoy the community.
Gotcha. Kind of a quick diversion off into the weeds for just a second. I always thought it would be really cool to work at Half Price Books. Is it a cool job? Or
Okay, it depends on, like, I don't work there anymore, but it honestly depends on which location you work at, like what manager you have and stuff. I personally had a wonderful experience. That's just like me. I know I've heard some people are like, oh, this one was so busy and it was really hard to keep up. I absolutely loved it. I was one of those people who like was so excited when things would come in, when people would sell to us. There were things that I would be holding like that were so rare that people have never seen before, especially when you would get like these old books that were like old horror books that I had never heard of, and I used to take pictures of them and send them to friends. Do you remember the Jack Ketchum lettered edition of The Girl Next Door that was the box door set, and it was this wooden door set, and it was like super rare, and it came in, and I had through Books of Horror known Dallas's like social media person through the Books of Horror, and I actually contacted him, and he had been looking for that forever, and it was the greatest thing ever. Was I got to message him and say, hey, my manager said we can sell it to you first, and we discussed on a price that was very fair on his end, and it was amazing. So having these things that would come in and you finding it to the right person who was so excited, like, to me it was so rewarding. It was so much fun.
nice. Well, you mentioned there was a three. What was it? King, Kuntz, and Rice. Is that correct?
Yes, actually, the funny thing was what I started doing after joining Books of Horror was whenever it was like October season or spooky season, I made with my coworkers, I came up with the slogan, there's more to the horror life than King, Kuntz, and Rice. And it's nothing bad about them. It's just that there's more out there than just them because that's usually what you see. And we made like this big old wooden sign, and every Halloween we would hang it up, and we would just have horror books all over the front display, and it was super fun.
Well, the reason I bring that up is I was listening to an interview with you, and you mentioned being a fan of, what was it, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. What was it about these two, and how did those shape your taste in horror today?
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was, if I remember correctly, that was the first, and it was the children's abridged version, but that was the first like kids novel I ever read. And I think I was in third grade. I went from, reading all those like, Sweet Valley Kids and things like that. And then I do remember getting that one, and I was just glued to that. And then Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, just being scared. I was always a scaredy cat too when I was younger, but for some reason, if I could read it, I was fine. Like reading it was fun. But when I was really little, oh man, scary movies and don't get me into a haunted house. Still, I don't really, I still don't care for those. But like, honestly, like for some reason, I just remember feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And then once I started really reading bigger books and stuff, like in seventh grade, I was pounding out some of these like 400 or 500 page books all the time. They were always horror novels. It was so fun.
So I imagine you're not a fan of, you mentioned haunted houses. I guess it would be a combination of haunted house and found footage, a fan of Hell House LLC.
No. Is that the real one? The one they had that like series on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was based on anything real or not. I can't remember, but yeah, there's like three of them, I think, and just like some of the best found fiction. Oh my God. I've
That
never
is
been freaked out
so.
so bad in my life.
Oh yeah, those
Yeah.
found footage ones. Those are crazy. I did go see Blair Witch when I was like in high school and stuff. Like when I was in high school, I was fine, but when I was like a little kid, you know how some people start watching scary movies when they were a little kid? No, that was not me.
Uh,
And then I got into high school, I was fine with scary movies. We used to watch a lot of stuff, and I used to love it. But man, when I was a kid, no. That's why my mom was always like, "You were the scaredy cat as a kid." I think once I got into seventh grade, I just became immune to it after a while. But I still don't like going through haunted houses, like the jumping out and everything. That's not my jam.
Yeah, I think probably the best one I went to was Alice Cooper's Nightmare. That had the
Ooh,
best special effects. Yeah, it was really good. But all the other ones, I didn't get it.
he puts on a great show.
Oh yeah. So I wanted to actually bring it up because tell me again, when you joined Books of Horror, how many members was it? Just like 1,000?
I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was 600. I think it was 600. It was less than 1,000. So it was like either between five and 600, but feeling like it was 600.
Okay, so we are up to 63.7 thousand members.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
so awesome. It was so
Yeah.
cool.
So, what's it like watching it grow from such a modest number to 63.7 thousand members? This is a nice banner here, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's been crazy. Like, I feel like just a couple of years ago, it was only 20 something thousand. And then it just seems to be, we're getting 10, 20,000 a year. It's insane. And the more things that we do, the more people come. And I love it. I love when the more people come in, the more different kinds of books that they're sharing, the more, people get like discussions. And it's really fun. My favorite part is when somebody posts about a book, like, oh, I just finished this book and it was so great. And you see somebody go, I am so excited you posted this book because I've been dying to talk to somebody about it. And that's what the group is for, because a lot of us, I feel like with horror books, I mean, it is a niche genre, but it's growing so fast. But still, it's one of those things where it's hard to find people to talk about those books because not everybody reads them. And it's super, super rewarding when you get to share your passion with somebody. Like, oh my God, I just absolutely love this book. Like, but what did you think about this part? What were you feeling at this? Or did you think it was going to go this way? Because it's hard to get people like your friends and stuff to read the same things you do. Like, I have a really good friend and she keeps telling me like all these books she wants me to read, and I still haven't read one of them. But you know how it is. But then you find a group that you can connect with, and that's what it's all about. It's amazing.
So, I mean, it may not be something you want to give up, but is there something about it you think that's the secret that's made Books of Horror so successful compared to other groups?
Yeah, we really try to stick to the rules. There's times when we don't like catch everything. So then people are like, this is happening, and we don't see everything, but we do, because the main rule is like, don't be a dick. There's a lot of Facebook
That's a
groups
good
out
rule of
there.
life, regardless.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people who are just very angry with life, or they're just very aggressive and stuff. That's not what this is about. This isn't about judging people. This isn't about anything. It's about books, and we keep it about books. And I think that's a very, very important thing. And I think that's why people like it, because we're keeping the self promotion down, because we have rules about that. In order to self promote, you have to be like actually an active member, as in you have to talk about books other than you. And a lot of authors come in and then they get mad about that and then they leave, but it's not a promotion tool. It's a group for the community to be able to share their love of horror books. So I think people really respect that we have that rule, and we, stick to it. We stick to, just books only. There's a lot of groups out there that talk about movies, and video games and all kinds of stuff. But I think that's what it is like, number one, if you're being a jerk, you're done. This is done. But yeah, so it's like a good place that people feel comfortable to sit around and talk about the books they love. So I think that's why it keeps going.
Well, kind of piggybacking off that, what are some of your favorite interactions you've had with members or authors in the community?
Okay, so it sounds really silly, but like whenever there's like a bigger author that just jumps in and is like, hey, I'm so excited to be here. How's everybody doing? And you're just like, oh my gosh, so and so, came in. Like, I love it whenever Ramsey Campbell, because he'll jump in and start discussing books. And when he discusses books that are, and he brings in like different ideas and thoughts and everything like that. And you're just like, oh my gosh, do you know who you are? This is so exciting. I always get so excited when Ramsey Campbell jumps in, and it's kind of fun. But like, I mean, it's just that, but also my favorite is when I see somebody posting, like, I've been in this group for a while and I have found so many amazing books I never knew were out there. And I found so many amazing people to be able to discuss these books with. And I always felt so alone, like I was the only one that liked these. And now I feel like I have all these people that I can call my friends. I think that's really awesome. The other thing is when after we started the brawl, which was amazing, I used to, on my personal Instagram, I used to screenshot and then, like, black out the person's name. Whenever people would post a review about a book and say, I never would have picked this up, but it was on the brawl list. So, and I wanted to read every book on there. And I never thought I would like this. And I ended up loving this. What is going on? Like, this is the craziest thing. That happened with a lot of these books that people thought, oh, that sounds really dumb. And then they read it and they're just like blown away. And now they're like super fans of these authors or this subgenre. I love seeing that. That is so amazing. Like, I just love seeing that and the excitement grow and the love for the genre grow. That's my favorite part.
Yeah. Well, backtracking just a little bit, you spoke about the importance of community over self-promotion. So how do you encourage authors to build relationships in the group rather than just push sales?
Well, we tell them that they have to post about 3 books in between each self promo. And that doesn't mean you have to read 3 books a week or you have to read 3 books. But if, you can talk about a book that you read like 10 years ago that you loved, or you can talk about this is the book that, brought my love of horror, or, this is a book that I never would have thought would have blown me away. Or, I collect all these books by this author because X, Y, and Z. So we're trying to get them to talk to the readers and show the readers what their passion is. My favorite part is when I see a member say, hey, I loved that book too. Like, is this what your books are like, or is this one of the inspirations? Because if so, I want to read your book. And kind of seeing what people like and what people don't like. They'll make opinions about, well, maybe if they're really into this, maybe I will try their book. But yeah, like, it's important to show yourself being supportive of others, because I feel like if you're just look at me, look at me, look at me, people don't take you as seriously as opposed to I love books. This is my passion. My favorite thing is I heard an author say, you know, even if nobody was reading my stories, I would still write because I love it. I love it. This is like something I have to do because I love it. Even if nobody was around to read my stories, I just love it. And that meant, like, to me, I saw passion with that. And I thought that was really cool. But I feel like being a part of the community, doing stuff like helping out with, like, hey, can I help out with, like, with an event? Do you want me to help promo with you or anything? People see your name in a positive light instead of hey, kind of like a more selfish thing, like, oh, pay attention to me because I'm an author. It's more like I am a part of everything just like everybody else.
Gotcha. Well, one of the things that's been lingering in the back of my mind this entire time, we talked about it earlier. I can't remember if it was on or off recording, but the upcoming
Yes.
Books and Brews Author Con. And I wanted to bring up the list here. Now, listeners at home, this is one hell of a lineup here. I mean, we've got Let me bring it up to where I can see. Can you see that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of really great authors.
Yeah. A lot of them I've had on the show, so I know from personal experience that are just amazing. But I mean, you've got ones that stand out like Rachel Harrison, Clay McLeod Chapman, Christopher Triana, Joe Scipione, John Cohn. I mean,
Thomas Oldhavold, Marcus Lever, Elma Katsu. I mean, there's so many
Andrew Van
amazing.
Way.
Yeah. It's like Books of Horror presents Books and Brews. I'm just really excited. It's going to be August 2nd. Yeah, man, it's grown exponentially. It's insane. So we have about 65 authors, and it's so cool.
So does it just kind of operate like a normal con? Like you've got a vendor set up, you've got panels on different topics?
So, like last year, it ended up being a lot bigger than I originally wanted. So, but we had last year, we had about 56 authors come, and it was just one day. It was just a 1 day signing where they were all at tables. We only have like a bookstore, and we had two vendors, and then the rest of them were authors. But this year, we are doing it kind of like a 3 day thing. It's not really a 3 day thing, it's just 2 nights before or 2 days before, we're doing different things. One of our biggest complaints we had last year was because it's mainly surrounded by the Books of Horror group, was everybody said there wasn't enough time for everybody to hang out. I talked to a lot of the authors, and they said, like, I had a blast, but I felt like I didn't have enough time with everybody. And everybody said that. And so this year we decided to do Thursday night. So a lot of people are coming in Thursday night because they want to be all rested up for Friday and make sure they're there on time. Thursday night, we are doing a free party at the hotel because we're having it at the hotel. And that's just going to be where everybody's going to be hanging out. We have free snacks for everybody and lemonade and iced tea. And the bar is going to be open if you want to drink alcohol, but it's just going to be a really cool time where everybody can just hang out with everybody and talk and catch up and everything. And then Friday, this happened in the past 2 months. Like, we were never going to do like panels or, Q&A readings or anything like that. And then some of the bigger authors that we got were interested in doing like a reading and everything. And I was like, oh, I can set that up. And the next thing I know, I'm setting up from 12 until 4. There's going to be 3 different things going on. Like 3 different rooms are going to be having like readings or a panel going on. And so that's just from 12 to 4 on Friday. And then Friday evening from 5 until 8 or whenever everybody leaves, we're doing like a pizza party. So everybody, all the authors are going to be, eating pizza with everybody all the authors that are going to be there, as of Friday, which most of them, pretty much 99% of them will be there. So we're doing something special where we sold some tickets to where you can sit and eat with one of the authors for 45 minutes, and they sold like 3 tickets each of for a couple of those authors. I think it was like 20 of the authors. And so they, and usually, like last year we did that for breakfast time, and then the authors, all last year the authors brought gifts for the people who paid to have breakfast with them. So it was actually kind of fun, and everybody loved that, and they said they wanted to do that again this year. So we're doing it like, but at the pizza party. So we're doing that, and that's from like 5 to 5:45. At 6 o'clock, we're going to announce our special announcement. We're having a surprise. And then after we announce our surprise, so it could be a thing or a person, possibly an author, who knows? But it's a really big surprise. So we're really excited. It is not Stephen King or Joe Hill. Everybody keeps asking if it's Stephen King or Joe Hill, and no, it's not. I wish.
But isn't that what you would say if it was?
But it's a really good one, because the few people who know, they're just like, oh my God, this is really seriously. And I'm like, I'm just blown away. So anyway, we're going to announce that. And then from like 6 8:30ish to like 8:30. We're going to have like some of the bigger authors that's going to have a really big line are going to do early signings and sellings and signings so that like the next day things are not so crowded. And then after that, everybody's just going to be hanging out until God knows when at night. And they're going to be like keeping the bar open until midnight, the patio and bar and everything open until midnight. Like 10 o'clock, everybody's going to have to kind of quiet down and stuff. But like, hopefully not get too crazy. But yeah. And then Saturday, starting at 10 o'clock, is the VIP is from 10 until noon. And then from noon until 5, the general admission. But once you get in for VIP, you can stay all day. It's going to be really fun. Like I said, I never planned on having something this big. It just ended up happening. So it's going to be really exciting.
Sounds awesome. And I apologize for not knowing this. I feel like this is in some way related to Books of Horror, but maybe it's kind of its standalone thing. The indie book boxes.
Oh, yeah. Well, I started that with a lot of the authors, or like when I did it, I was doing it kind of through Books of Horror and my indie book boxes myself. I did that because a lot of people were talking about how much they love, book boxes, and they hadn't seen any that like were from like a lot of the indies that they see. And I love chapbooks. And I thought it would be fun to do something with like chapbooks that have never been out before, or just, people from the group. And so that they buy that, then they'll get like a Books of Horror merch. So yeah, and it's been really fun. I really, really have enjoyed it.
So what am I looking at here? Books and Brews Eve.
That was actually a comic book that was done by Ben and Lauren Young wrote it. And then Alexandria Christensen and Jamie Stearns, they illustrated it, and it was really fun. And I put that in the Halloween box, and I had no idea that you could print books like with colored pages and things like that. I'm not an author, so I don't know these things, but somebody was like, yeah, you can. And it was really fun. And so they added all of there's like pictures and really funny comics about all the authors that were at Books and Brews last year.
Okay. Well, there's only one left, folks. So get on that while you can. Was there anything to expand on with that as far as how it supports indie authors?
Oh, well, it gets a lot of their books out at once to different readers. There's been quite a few people who have never heard of an author, and then they got the box and then they tried them out and they were like, oh my gosh, I never would have read this and I loved it. And they became fans of authors. So I feel like it did its purpose. I feel like people really, really enjoyed it. I had a lot of the authors were really excited about, having their books in there, and felt like it helped them a lot get more exposure. Also, it's really good for people to try different authors, especially ones that they would have never picked for themselves, but it was picked for them because it came in their box. So I found a couple of authors because of that. And so actually, Anya Alborn, who's one of my favorites, there was, I think it was called the Nocturnal Readers Box, and I used to get that. I think that's what it was called. It's a long closed down a long time ago. But the reason why I found her was because they would post on their social media the books that they passed in order, like, oh, this one almost made it in. And Brother, they almost picked Brother for one of their boxes. And they just wanted to say this book was really great. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And so I actually ended up picking that one up. And then I just went over the cliff obsessed with her. So I feel like book boxes are really awesome.
Yeah, and are chapbooks, is that like a recent thing that people have started kind of utilizing, or has that always been something people do to kind of uniquely promote some smaller work?
I think they've always done that because with working at a bookstore, we used to get those in a lot. A lot of people used to collect those. And so we would get collections in, and they usually would come out with like the chapbooks when there was like a limited edition something, and then they would get the chapbook with it. Or like, if they were the first so many sales with something, then they would get that chapbook or something. But there was like I remember seeing tons of chapbooks, and I used to always like those. I used to bring them in the back when I was eating my lunch and read them at work and then put them back on the shelf. But I love chapbooks. They're adorable. They're so cute,
Yeah.
but it also gets you that really good snippet of what an author is like. And I feel that's important, in order to be like, I really like their writing style, or, because especially nowadays, everybody has such a short attention span. So if you can't get an audience's attention really fast, like, they'll give a chapbook a chance before they'll give like a big epic novel a chance.
So basically, chapbooks are like reels.
Yeah. Oh no, it's totally true.
Yeah.
Totally true. So I feel like they're important. I like them, and they're cheap. Like if you go to an event, like at the Books Brews event last year, I feel like I had told quite a few people, do a chapbook and sell it for $5, $6, something. People will snatch that up because they have a lot easier time parting with $5 than they do 15. And a lot of them who brought these little chapbooks and stuff sold out of them pretty fast. So it was really exciting.
Yeah, and they're kind of like you said earlier, if you don't want to commit to reading a 300-page novel because you're not familiar with the author, you can kind of dip your toe in the water and
Oh,
see what it's like before you go off into the deep end.
oh yeah. Oh, definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then also a lot of these, bookstagrammers or book talkers, they have to like finish so many books a year and stuff. And then they like start reading chapbooks if they're not at their goal, and then they feel like they got to their goal. So that always makes you feel good. Like, oh, I wanted to read 100 books this year. I only read, 90. They can pull out like 10 chapbooks and just finish them like that. And then it still makes you feel
Mhm.
good.
Well, tell us about the Indie Author Book Brawl.
Oh yeah. Okay. So Sean McDonald, he's the one that wrote Not Another 80s Horror Novel. He's amazing. He's been in the group as long as I have. Same thing with Lansdale. So Sean every March would do March Madness. March Madness was where he would just go on a post at the beginning of March every year and be like, okay, throw some novels at me. And he would do these bracket things, and every day we would, vote down and stuff just to see whoever, like the most popular favorite book was. But they were all traditionally published books, because he said, I don't want to do indie authors because it's a popularity contest and I don't want people to get upset. Well, in 2023, there were quite a few members who just kept commenting, like, this is crazy. Why are we not doing indie authors? Like, we should be doing indie authors. We should be doing this. And Sean was still sticking to his guns, saying, no, this could be a popularity contest. And I looked at that and I thought, there's a way we can do this with indie authors. So I messaged him and I was like, hear me out. Hear me out. What if we just voted in like the 32 and say we gave everybody 6 months to read all of the books, and then it won't be a popularity contest anymore. It will be a popularity contest to get into the 32, but the number one book would have to be because people read it. Like, and they would do it on their honor system because they would have to read these books. And he thought about it and he was like, "Oh my God, you're right. Like we should do this." And I was like, so we brought Lance in, and then we all talked about it, and then they figured everything out. So then we had all the authors who wanted to be in it, and it was like over 120 or 140. I can't remember. But we had everybody just like the books, like, just click like only, vote for 32 books that you want in the 32. And then we got the 32 and then we gave them until September. And I told Sean, I was like, how cool would it be if like 20 or 30 people read the books? Like, this would be awesome. Like, this would be really fun. Well, it ended up exploding, and hundreds of people read these books. It was crazy. Like, it was absolutely insane. There were books that had gotten voted in that were like all of a sudden getting, number one ribbons on Amazon, and people were just going nuts and buying them all and reading them all. And these authors who were barely selling any books, like, maybe one or two here and there and stuff, they were selling like 10 to 20 a week. And they were just like, what is going on? It was crazy. And then I did shirts, and I sold like over 200 Indie Brawl shirts. And all summer, it was just a lot of people posting all of these books they read. But my favorites were all these people who were posting, wow, I didn't know I would like this subgenre of horror, and I love it. And this is so amazing. I never would have tried this author. I would have never given this a chance. And I always read this kind of book. I never read this kind of a book, and I didn't realize how much I love it. I think sometimes when people get in reading ruts, it's because they're only reading the same kind of book because they know that they like this certain subgenre, and so they don't get out of their comfort zone. But this was making everybody get out of their comfort zone, and they were loving it. And they were loving comparing each books. And there was a lot of them that had like the same themes but were so different. It was amazing. It was so fun.
So, along with book sales, did they notice social media follows,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
subscriber
So
counts going up? Yeah,
oh yeah,
very nice.
everything. So that was one of the things that after the first year, there was like well over 400 that signed up for the next year, because all these authors were like, oh my gosh, this is one of these things I have to get in there because this is the way I'm going to get popular. Because they really, I mean, it really skyrocketed some of these authors' careers. It was really, and we never would have thought about this. And like, I was so excited. Sean had such a fun idea with that March Madness. Like, it's kind of one of those things where one person has an idea and then it just builds, and it was amazing. So, yeah, it was really cool.
Well, kind of speaking about further ideas to transition, what inspired you to launch Dead Tree Terror, and how does it differ from your other projects?
So, Dead Tree Terror, I have not written much on the social media lately because I am waiting for all the submissions to come in. But I had seen a lot of competitions or book awards and things like that. And I had seen a lot of people say, hey, you know, I feel like the same people are getting the same awards, or there's a lot of people out there that are really, really good writers, if only like they were given a chance. Or there's a lot of times people feel like there's bias because somebody is already a popular author, or just anything. Somebody could be friends with somebody that runs a competition, or who knows. This contest, I had thought of because I absolutely love chapbooks. I was like, there's a lot of people hearing a lot of people saying, oh, if so and so, they're such a good author and they need to get a chance, or they're not getting the foot in the door because they don't know the right people. I was like, how cool would that be if there was an anonymous competition where people wouldn't even know who is like who they're reading, like at all, and then they read these stories, and then they pick which story is the best, but they're not going to know who it is. So like, how would that go? Like, because I feel like that is the most honest way to have a competition is your name. They don't know anything about you. They don't know if you are a famous author or like an author that has a big name, or if you just wrote your first story. So I was thinking about it for a while, and then I talked to quite a few people. I'm like, what do you think if we did, like, if I did an anonymous chapbook competition? And I feel like interior design is super important these days. Everybody, like, has been noticing, especially with indie, like whenever there's a cool interior design, they talk about it like right away. Like, oh my gosh, the inside of this was so cool. Like, I love the interior design. And I feel like that's an art that nobody really gives a lot of credit to, that I feel like is really cool. So that's something that is being judged. The cover, I feel like I've had this conversation with many authors, like a couple of really big authors too, and about how a cover is so important because a cover can make a book. A cover can do sales for even a book that nobody likes. But the author gets really, really popular because their cover was amazing. And that's happened quite a few times where, so the cover artist needs credit, but then obviously the author. So I devised a plan and I was like, okay, so if I got all the chapbooks in and then, blacked out their name with like blackout tape, not a Sharpie because you can still see names through Sharpies, but blackout tape, and sent it to the judges. So, like, we have 4 judges, and then they each read like a stack of them, and then they pick out the few favorites that they have for the story, and then they can discuss amongst themselves and pick out winners for everything. But then they all will agree on the best cover, and then they will all agree on like the interior design. But with the stories, they'll be like, okay, read these stories because I feel like these are the strongest, and so that's kind of like how they're going to do this. So they're not going to know who they're reading. So what I did was, in the rules I said, in order to do this, you cannot post on social media that you entered this competition. So they can't even know who entered, because if they know who entered, they're going to try to figure out which who wrote what, even if they
It's got to
don't
be a
want
double
to.
blind placebo study.
Yes. So, and then they can't tell other people that they did that. So what I did was I talked to Jonathan Jans. I met with him and I said, okay, so this is my idea I have. And I said, like, I want you to be a judge, but also, what do you think about this idea? And I said, it's not anything that, like, a lot of my, like, it's not anything that's, going to be making money. I'm not asking anybody to, submit money to do this. They are submitting 5 copies because they have to send one to each judge. And then I need one for like social media purposes and stuff, like at the end and everything. And then I'm going to be giving the chapbooks away at Books and Brews. Like, I'm going to do like special giveaways. And so I'm not like keeping them or anything. But I asked him and I said, this is what I want to do. Like, can you tell me what you think? And he said he loved the idea. He's like, the first question he asked though was, is there going to be AI in there? And I was like, absolutely none. Like, absolutely no AI is allowed. And he said, okay. And then he said, do you want the authors to like give crucial feedback, or to be mean, or to be, like to say things about like the books they didn't like? And I was like, oh my God, absolutely not. And he was like, okay. He was like, because he's like, I don't want to be a judge in something that is going to sound negative. I want something to be positive. And I said, absolutely. And because he brought in those 2 points that he feels like are like important with competitions. And I said, no, like, I don't want any like, nobody's going to need feedback or anything. It's just whichever story you liked. And he said, even being with a teacher, he said that it's never like, oh, this is better than this one, or this is better than this one. He's like, it's all about what story speaks to you. And he's like, that's how I would judge, is which story spoke to me. And then he said, yeah, I'm in. And I was just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I was really thrilled. So then I talked to RJ Joseph. Rhonda is amazing. She is like talking to sunshine. She's so excited about books. She's a professor. This is like what she does. She loves it. Whenever I have talked to her about anything, just her love of literature and excitement is just like infectious. Like I don't want to like leave her side. She's amazing. And so I asked her and I was like, I know you're super busy and you're a professor and everything. And she said yes. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I asked Clay McLeod Chaplin and he said yeah. And then I didn't know this, but he loves chapbooks. Like he collects them. So he thought that was really cool. And then Ruth Ann, obviously, she was like, heck yeah. So yeah, so this is going to be really interesting. So I'm going to be getting in all those getting those in. I have somebody who did the jot form to and like help me out with all of this. Her name's Kate Forsman, and she like helped me set this all up, and then she's got them coming to her house since I've got like a lot of things for other books of horror stuff and everything coming to my house, and then gonna black out all those names, and then we're going to send them off to the judges. They're going to do their thing, and then at the beginning of July we're going to announce the winners. And I'm really excited. I'm excited to see what people feel after the competition, like how they feel like it went and what their feedback is. I hope this is something that ends up becoming a trend where it's I like anonymous stuff, but it is also really hard to do something anonymous because they can't publish it yet. They can't tell anybody they're doing this and stuff. So that makes things a little hard.
Yeah. Well, as far as the judges that you were talking about that you had selected, or let me ask first, how many judges total is it?
4.
4. Okay. So what unique strengths do you think they each bring?
So Jonathan is a teacher. He teaches literature. He is also just really excited about everything. When you meet him, he's very positive and he's a really good writer. And I felt like I knew that he would tell me the truth, like if he thought this was a good thing or not. And then also would have really good feedback. So I felt like he would be a great judge. Rhonda, obviously, because she's a professor. She's also an editor. She works with like doing anthologies and with publishers and things like that. And she's an amazing writer. If you've never read her before, but when I had done an interview with her, the stuff that she says about like writing and about how there's already, a Stephen King and there's already, this person and that other person. She goes, I always tell my students, there's only a one you, and we need to bring you out here. And I think she's going to find that, like that voice. She's going to be really good at finding that voice that is unique and really true to themselves. And I think that she would be really awesome. Clay is just amazing. You meet him and he's infectious to be around. I love it. So he was super cool. And then Ruth Ann, I love talking to her about books, and she picks like when she talks about books and just the voices in there and the way people write and the way authors come through in their books and their research and everything. Like she's so intelligent. So I thought she would be really, really good because a lot of times when she says she likes books, those are the books I like too. And I thought, oh, this is really cool. And they're all a little different, but they're all like really happy people and really and just absolutely just love books. So I feel like that's really important.
Sounds like a winning lineup. Well, kind of a rapid fire question. What is one horror trope you'll never get tired of?
Cannibals.
Oh,
I don't know. I like cannibal horror. I feel like, cults, any of that kind of stuff. All that kind like, oh, you're in a cult and then you find out they're like cannibals. That's always kind of like, oh, I love that.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned cannibals. I was just scrolling through Instagram and I saw Shudder advertising that they had Cannibal Holocaust? That really controversial one?
I can read about it. I can read about stuff, but like some of these horror movies, I'm just like, I'd rather read a book. That's crazy.
So you're more of a reader. You don't kind of go back and forth. You prefer the written word.
Yeah, I've always been kind of like that. I'm always last to see horror movies. I think I've seen three in the past 8 years. Yeah, it's pretty sad. I really want to go see Sinners, but this past few weeks I've been so busy, and I just want to go by myself. But it's like every day I have to do something, and I'm like, ah, I don't want to have to wait for it to be on streaming. So, but that is one like I really want to see. I really, really want to see that one. So that is one I am gonna actually go see in the theater. I'm just keep telling myself there's gonna be a day that I'm gonna get, a few hours to myself and go be able to go see it.
Yeah. Make sure you get one of those pods. When you go to the theater, do you ever get the 2-seater pods with the reclining?
Oh yeah. There's a great
the blanket you can curl up like you're at home.
Yeah, we bring like my kids whenever the only movies because I have a 6-year-old. The only movies we go see are kids movies, and so we always bring like blanket and everything like that. So and there's a great theater in Beloit, Wisconsin, and I like going to that one because it's really comfortable and they have the heated recliner seats and it's always nice.
Well, what is the life of Tiffany Koplin like outside of the indie horror world?
Well, I have family, a husband and a son, and I don't know, it's usually just family stuff. We like going, like in the summertime, my husband's a teacher, so in the summer, we're at the lake a lot. We like, go to a lake about an hour away. We go there all the time. We like to spend a lot of time outside. Yeah, I used to do a lot of wood burning, but I haven't had very much time to do that. It's just really fun to do. I used to do that as a hobby. Haven't in a while, but it just seems like I'm just really busy with life. Not nothing too interesting. I used to go to a lot of metal concerts, and now I just don't. I'm getting to this point where it's like, I don't really want to drive into Chicago. Like, I used to love going to Reggie's in Chicago. That was a great place. But now where I used to park my car was like by kind of like a park and everything like that. Now they built like apartment complex there. And the parking sucks. And it's just, ugh, I don't want to have to drive and then have to find a place to
Yeah.
park. I feel like I'm just too lazy. But I used to go to concerts all the time. I used to try to go like every other month or something. But yeah, that's about it.
When you say metal, which brand of metal?
I really, the kind that I really like is like, I like death, doom, anything in the death realm there. I think the last show I went to was Korea and and Black Braid, but they're like black metal or whatever. I'm trying to think who was the main. Oh my gosh, this is so bad. I'm trying to think who else did I go see? Cattle Decapitation I went and saw not too long ago. I've seen them a few times. Inner Arma, Blood Incantation, Primitive Man. So I'm trying to think of who it was. I haven't gone to a concert in like a year, but I used to. I used to do that a lot. I was trying to remember who all I saw. I have a friend of mine who's coming to visit me at the end of this month, and she's trying to get me to go to a show in Chicago with her. And I'm just like, I'm tired. I like to go to bed at 8:30. I'm turning old. I'm not very fun anymore.
Yeah. Are you a fan of gent metal at all, like Periphery or Meshuggah?
Yeah, I never got really, really into them, but I'll listen to them. But yeah, I usually like all kinds of metal. Like I really got into Windhand. Like for a while there, I was listening to them a lot.
Okay.
But there's like it's always one of those things. You're always like, oh, I don't want to go. And then when you're there, you're like, oh my God, I've
Yeah.
been missing this in my life for so long.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Love it.
Well, Tiffany, it has been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I feel honored, and thank you so much. And hopefully, if you are around Noblesville, Indiana, like come out to Books and Brews. It's going to be amazing. And I mean, how often are you going to find an event that has a free party with a bunch of the authors that you could just sit around and hang out with on a Thursday night before so it's July 31st. And just come on out and just hang out with everybody and talk about books or talk about whatever. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah. Oh, if I was physically able, I would definitely do it, but I unfortunately can't this year. But so you're planning on making it a yearly thing?
We're going to see how everything goes after this year. It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than people think it is. It's a lot of work. So we'll see how everything goes.
All right. Well, as we bring the show to a close, is there anything you'd like to plug besides what we've kind of already talked about or let the community know about? Anything you'd like to reiterate?
No, I think that's about it. Thank you so much.
All righty. Well, listeners at home, all links are in the description. And Tiffany, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday for a new episode featuring the best and brightest authors and filmmakers of dark literature and film. So until then, stay healthy, stay sane, and as always, thank you for listening. See you next time.